Greetings all. Welcome back to the Coptimizer Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Flannelly. Got another awesome guest today. Today, my guest is Joe Rivera. Joe is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps and just a super fit badass. Those are my words, not his. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for having me on your show. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
So Joe is a retired United States Marine, Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
Always like to give my shout out to my veteran brothers and sisters. But Joe is also a DECA racer, and I'm sure he's done a lot of other things in the fitness arena over the years. But just a quick background for those that have been listening to the show know that my background in fitness has generally been geared around CrossFit, but I also like to do Spartan races. And then last year I came across the DECA Fit competitions, the DECA series. So I've been dipping my toes into those waters. And anytime you do something like this and you're a bit of a competitor, you have to take a look around at the space and always start at the top. And I look at when I run my races and I kind of look at my times and then I look to see who's at the top, right? I got to see where I stand, and I got a lot of work cut out for me, Joe. If I'm ever going to catch you, I got a lot of work cut out for me, which begs the question, when you see people that are this strong and competing at this high level, you always want to know, okay, who are they? How did they get there? What does their day look like? And from an optimization perspective, I can't think of a better guest to have on your show. So I know that's kind of a long intro, but thanks for being here.
Oh, much appreciated. Thank you. So, I do the same thing. I usually, if I'm doing a new event or a new season of whatever I'm doing, I'm usually looking at who's raced recently, who's at the top of the leaderboard, and I just did that with the leaderboard for DECA, and I just saw that one of the guys that went to the November event, the championship event, has already put down a really, really nice DECA strong mark that it's kind of fired me up a little bit to kind of regain that again. So yeah, there should be some really good times out this year from a bunch of our guys in our age group. So.
All right, so we're going to get to what is DECA and the race, but before that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so like Patrick said, my name is Joe Rivera. I go by Joe Rivera. My name is Joselito Rivera. I grew up in New England, born in Connecticut, and grew up in Massachusetts. And really, I didn't get started in any type of sports or anything like that until I was a sophomore in high school, when I joined a cross country team, and then after that, you continued doing cross country and wrestled a little bit in high school, and then indoor track is what my sports were. Didn't really play ball growing up. To this day, I can't throw, hit, or catch a ball to save my life. So put that out there real quick. But I can do other things. I'm pretty good at maintaining a good pace at running, and I like being in that dark zone when it comes to endurance type events. I tried to CrossFit for about a month and quickly realized that CrossFit wasn't for me. So I kind of veered off to just continue running and endurance to obstacle course type events. Growing up in Massachusetts, I got married at a pretty young age. And it wasn't until, I was a husband with a 1-year-old daughter that I decided that life wasn't going in the track that I probably should have been going in, and decided to join the Marine Corps at 22 years old. Which is probably the best thing I ever did in my life. I don't think that my life would be what it is now if it wasn't for the decisions I made later on in my life. I felt I was at an advantage joining the Marine Corps at 22 and not at 17, 18. a little bit
Yeah.
mature, you know. So my focus was going to boot camp was, push through and get through it. And the Marine Corps taught me a lot of things right from the get-go in boot camp that nothing's given to you. You everything that you do, it's earned. Everything in life, including your health and well-being. You're not born uh a physical specimen in life. You've got to work at being the best at and maintaining your health and whatnot. So the Marine Corps basically taught me that, and I live by a lot of the principles that the Marine Corps taught me, throughout the years. I ended up doing between active and reserve 22 years total, and retired in 2010, and I haven't stopped doing what I love doing best, and that's doing events and competing and competing amongst my fellow age groupers, so
Yeah. Well, the well, first of all, thank you for your service. Appreciate everything that you've done. The military has a way of what I like to say with a couple of friends of mine, is particularly when it comes to the Marine Corps, right? They have a way of working out wrinkles.
yeah.
When you look at a Marine, you think of starched finish, crisp uniforms, but you can't help but to think of, someone that is super fit, and it's part of the credos and part of what they train into. But in the end, what I think the military in general, and I think what the Marine Corps does very well, is builds discipline into your life and into your day, whether you want it or not.
Yes, absolutely. No, 100%.
Once you sign on the line, you've lost the option of deciding whether you want to be disciplined or not, and for the period of time you're there. But right, it's like any other lifestyle. Once you develop and get into that groove, everything that's hard becomes easier. It's never easy, but it becomes easier, if that makes sense.
Right. And one of the key things is knowing that you're expecting something hard. You go with the mentality that it's going to be hard versus, going in there with the unknown mentality. Something's going to be hard. You get that mentality. You better prepare yourself for what's going to come. So
I love it. And that's and I think that's one of the things that separates the Marine Corps. I was an Air Force guy. I didn't have that quite. I was right out of high school, and I can certainly see where being a few years older there's a benefit to it, a little bit of maturity under your belt, and quite frankly, some responsibility that's on the line. Like you're
right.
a young father. The world is a different. There's a different look to the world, and what your responsibilities are. And quite frankly,
Right.
in policing, we talk about this all the time. There's these debates that go on. Who makes the best police officers? Is it a college graduate? Is it a a military veteran? Is it neither? And what I always come back to is it's really any of the above, all of the above, or none of the above. It boils down to the individual and what their individual maturity level is, and how hard they're willing to work, and character, integrity, discipline, all those things that like the Marine Corps is very good at instilling in young people and building that character. So
Exactly. Yeah, no, I fully agree 100%. And really, it's not just the Marine Corps. I mean, any of the branches of the service are going to offer you, you know, a definitely good level of discipline and integrity and all those character traits. It's up to the individual to really grasp that and live by those, by those qualities and stuff that you learn in whatever branch of service that you join. I mean, the Marine Corps has a good reputation because they really emphasize a lot on those aspects of integrity and honor and tradition and the whole 9 yards. But all the other branches of service are it's what you make it that and what you get out of it that gives you all those good qualities.
Amen. So what did you do in the Marine Corps? What was your job?
So went to boot camp, and then I was a surveyor for artillery. I was in the artillery field in the better part of my military career. Spent some time in Okinawa doing survey for artillery, deployed with the first Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Came back from that, and had to make some decisions on getting off of active duty and joining the reserves, due to just going through some personal stuff, divorce and custody of my children and stuff like that. So I made that decision to drop down in the reserve side, and came back in the reserves right after I dropped down as an aircraft firefighter. Did that for a bunch of years in California, then transferred to Atlanta when my current wife was stationed in Virginia for pharmacy tech school. She's in the Navy. And we ended up moving down to Jacksonville. So I was traveling back and forth from Jacksonville to Atlanta, doing the aircraft firefighting stuff. Transferred from there when they closed down that unit to a landing support battalion in Savannah. And after a couple years there, I got promoted to E8 first sergeant, got promoted, transferred to a unit in Tampa, and deployed all in the same month of January of 2003 to the first, one of the first waves of the conflict. Came back from that and ended up in a unit, the unit here in Jacksonville, which is an Amtrak unit also. Tampa unit was an Amtrak unit. And then deployed again with the Jacksonville unit a couple years after for a second round of Iraq. And came back from that, got promoted to sergeant major and did my last 4 years out in New Orleans with an intel sport battalion as my 4 years as a sergeant major. So then decided it was time to, after 22 years of total service, decided it was time to hang it up and hand off the reins to somebody else that needed to get promoted. So,
well, yeah, that's about 5-minute description of a lifetime lived by many people. So
yeah,
so that's interesting, having that perspective of being deployed in the first Gulf War, coming, and then going back to Iraq in 2003, and then a deployment after that. So things change, but then also I think just a quick shout out to you as well. I think people that maybe that are not in the military don't necessarily appreciate or may not understand how difficult it is to reach the rank of sergeant major. So that is, that's quite the accomplishment. So we're beginning to understand, the work ethic and the discipline that we see on display out in these DECA races. And one other comment real quick, divorce in the military is very similar to that in law enforcement. Very demanding work schedules. It just puts a lot of pressure, particularly on young families. And in law enforcement right now is I think it's the highest divorce rate. I know it's the highest suicide rate, but it also has a very high divorce rate. And it's kind of one of the things I want to talk about today is, well, knowing that life is going to be hard and it's going to throw some of these challenges at us, by being disciplined and taking an approach where we're going to build a fitness lifestyle. I think it's one of the things that can help us carry through a lot of the challenges that we're going to face, whether it's, in your case, three deployments to war zones. Police officers are, it's a similar stress, different, but they're, every night they're going out and deploying out on the streets of their local communities. They're seeing a lot of traumatic things, and experiencing a lot of stress. And
Yep.
so, going in, it's like, that's what you sign up for. And that going in, and getting prepared for it. Great organizations will provide the resources to help people really build on that. But there's also a high level of individual responsibility and accountability that has to come in to make sure that we're preparing ourselves. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
100%.
so for, in your case, what is it, what were some of the things that you found from a fitness perspective, or how did you approach fitness, and how did you build that into your lifestyle? Clearly very busy.
So going back to high school, when I finished high school, um, I still maintain a certain level of just running occasionally, stuff like that. So that's the only thing I ever did to maintain my fitness. But when I joined the Marine Corps, what I liked about what the Marine Corps did as far as training is that circuit type of training where, you're running and you're dropping down and doing, double count push-ups, and then you're back up and you're running again, and then you're doing freaking double count freaking side straddle hops. And it's that whole mentality of, okay, I kind of like this, that it's you're pacing yourself, you're doing something strenuous, you're pacing yourself, you're doing something strenuous. And so, when I started back in California doing obstacle course races, back then they were called mud runs. That was back in '95 is when I did my first one. I think California was one of the few places that actually had it. I enjoyed just working as a team, and going up and over obstacles, working on grip strengths and stuff like that. So 2 years of that, and then moving to the East Coast, there was no obstacle course racing on the East Coast close enough for me to go to. So it wasn't until 2010 that I started picking it up again. In the meantime, I when we moved to the East Coast, Jacksonville, that's when I actually started doing like local 5Ks, and getting really knee deep in the running community as far as road racing, 5Ks, 10Ks. I think my threshold is like half marathons. Anything over half marathon, it's I don't enjoy it. I've only done 3 marathons in my life. The first one that I ever did was way back in the beginning. I was totally unprepared for, was the Marine Corps marathon up in DC,
Yes.
and swore I would never do another one again. And when I was getting ready to turn 50, I have an uncle that does marathons all the time. He lives up in New Jersey, and he convinced me to do Boston Marathon. Well, to do Boston Marathon, you got to do a marathon to qualify. So I did a marathon in Jacksonville, which was my fastest marathon. Um, Qualified for Boston, and then did Boston that following year. Well, a couple months later. That was 2017, I believe. Um, and of course, I made the same mistake that everybody tells you not to make, is don't go all too hot in the beginning, because the second half of the course really sucks. And sure enough, I fell prey to not heeding to that advice, but it was a great experience. Um, so if, everybody should do Boston Marathon at least once in their life. They just 26 miles of people just lined up cheering you on a course. Is just, there's nothing like it. So in the meantime, while I was running, I in 2010 started doing all the obstacle course racing and became really good at it. And at that time, you didn't have a bunch of the top elite guys. So, us, I call them the B team. We were actually pretty good out there. And so I kind of made a small name for myself in the Florida market, and so on and so forth. As somebody that was actually pretty good at it. I got pretty good grip strength and hanging strength. So and then the sport just blew up and grew. When Spartan got involved in 2011, 2010, 2011, it just grew, and so it got to the point where I transitioned to the masters divisions, and did pretty good in the masters divisions. And Spartan eventually got rid of masters, and that's how I transitioned into the age group division. And I to be honest, I really enjoy competing with the guys in my age group. Only because just watching the intensity of guys that are closely related as far as age to you, just put in so much work and so much dedication, and they're looking you up, you're looking them up, and you're chatting and you're talking about training techniques, or what do you do for this, and I'm the type of person that I love sharing what I do, because if I'm going to compete with somebody that's in my age group, I want them to be at the same level that I'm in, So I always, somebody comes to my gym, I always try to teach them everything that I know, or everything that that I've learned over the years, because I want that competition to be equal across the board. So,
well, that's really cool. So the and for listeners that are not if you're not sure what a Spartan race is or a Tough Mudder, generally what you're talking about are, there's different distances. Spartan in particular, you have what they call a sprint, which is generally a 5K range with anywhere from 10 to 15 obstacles. And the obstacles are things like climb over a wall, run through mud pits, crawl underneath barbed wire, climb high walls, climb a rope, do monkey bars, and monkey bars that move, rings, just things that are going to test just your overall work capacity, grip strength, things like that. So for people that like to get outside and work out, I think Spartan races are really fun to train for. And,
right.
One thing about, I love CrossFit. I love the methodology of CrossFit. And I like, one of the things that really attracted me to it to begin with was that it was functional fitness that applied directly to my work environment. Being a police officer, it prepared me very well for strength, power, speed, flexibility, endurance, all the things that I might encounter in, say, something like a foot chase that turns into a physical altercation, short, long distance, carrying all that weight on your body. But I also have always enjoyed working out outdoors and, being out in the fresh air. And there's a lot of science behind, John Rattay talks about in his book, Go Wild, some of the benefits that you get just from being outside and exercising. So, it's kind of, I live in the Midwest, you're down in sunny Florida. So sometimes it's more difficult to get outside and do some of those things in the winter. I still like to get out and work outside in the winter, but that, that's a sprint. And then they have what they call your super, which is anywhere from usually, I think, 5 to 10 miles. And then your beast, which are that 12 to 15 mile range. And now they have ultras, which are the 26 mile plus. And those generally, the longer you go, in those beasts, a couple of the obstacles get a little bit more difficult, and there's more of them. And it's so those races, can take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, depending on your work capacity for those beast level. And ultras obviously even longer than that. So.
Correct. Yeah.
Just a quick background on those. So, yeah, you're right. When I think Spartan for a while was one of the fastest growing sports in the world, and certainly in America. And I think it was just, I think in a large part because they're kind of fun. That you get outside, you can compete as an individual, and you can work hard, or you can compete with friends and get in groups. And it's kind of one of those things where it's fun because you can motivate each other to get out there and do something that's hard, but that's also good for you.
Correct. Yeah. No, and they got in at the right time too, when the sport on the East Coast was starting to grow. So they got in at the right time, and they grew pretty fast.
So then now we're like, where I met you in online here in this environment was through the DECA racing. Now DECA is kind of like I would kind of call it like a hybrid between Spartan racing and CrossFit or functional fitness type workouts. So It's generally done indoors. I think at gyms, as people do them outside, which I think is nice. But for these timed races, like anything else, right? If you're going to have a competition, you have to ensure that it is fair, that the setup is the same, that the work standards are the same. So
Right.
generally, these are done in convention centers and large gym environments. And the first one that I ran last year, a DecaFit, was up at in Chicago at the Navy Pier, that was kind of a fun environment.
Yep. I haven't done that venue yet. I know High Rocks. I think they use that venue also. So getting started with the whole DECA stuff, in 2014, I decided that I was going to set up a mobile gym. At the time, I was working with the post office still. I just recently retired from the post office. So I set up a mobile gym. I bought a trailer, had equipment in there, and I was doing functional fitness type training at different locations, some parks, private parking lots and stuff like that would let me use their facilities, stuff like that. And I did that almost 4 years, from 2014 to 2018. And 2018, I decided I think it's time to try to branch off and get a brick and mortar location to focus on obstacle course training and the functional fitness side of fitness. Open up the gym. Gym is still functional, going strong now since 2018. And surprisingly, the obstacle course training side of it didn't take off as I thought it was going to take off. The functional fitness side is what really took off. Then along came DecaFit, and they were doing a road show a couple years back. This is right pre-COVID. We were the second gym to sign up as an affiliate gym. So we have the capability to put on Deca Strong and Deca Mile events. We just had our Deca Mile for 2023 last weekend, which went really well. So that's how we got involved with the Deca environment. I really like that type of fitness. I mean, again, that's functional fitness. That's what I call, especially the strong, getting into that dark zone and staying in that dark zone for long periods of time, and just pushing yourself, ever so slightly, that, a little bit more and a little bit more. And we've had good success being partnered up with Spartan's DECA program. So, matter of fact, we're Spartan is coming to do their Jacksonville race, and I volunteered to go set up a DECA tent at the event for this weekend. So I won't be racing this weekend. Kind of recovering from a small injury, but I'll be running their DecaFit tent. So we'll be putting on challenges and stuff like that throughout the weekend for people to try some of the equipment and stuff like that, and just generate more interest in the DecaFit arena. So.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. It's great to get interested in something that that you're going to enjoy, or something that you think that you can stick with, and you don't have to be uber competitive to get involved. And I think a majority of people that get involved in these things are actually on the other end of the spectrum, where they're just looking for something to do that's going to keep them active, that they can build into their schedule and into their routines, and that's just going to help them in all aspects of life. And I think I can only speak for myself here, but as the older I get, the priorities shift a little bit. Not a ton, but I'm a big fan of Peter Attia. And if you've never listened to his podcast, the Drive podcast, Dr. Peter Attia, he has this saying where he's like, he trains like a centenarian decathlete, right? So, or athlete. If you want to be a functional person in your 90s and 100s and beyond, then the best time to start training was yesterday. The next best time is today. So don't wait. And the cool thing is that it doesn't matter where you are in in that spectrum, whether you're, if you're at the couch potato stage right now, or maybe you've had an injury or an illness or something that's prevented you from working out, or whether you're, at the Joe Rivera stage where you're at the pinnacle of your fitness and you're competing at a very high level. There's a place for you anywhere in there. And for police officers in particular, this is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very outspoken about it. I try to tell everybody, I can't make you go get fit, be fit, work out, but all I can tell you is that, all other things aside, strong people by their very nature are just harder to kill. So, and you're just, and so, you know what, be strong, be as strong as you can. Doesn't mean you have to be the strongest, the fastest, the fittest, but, work at a level that's good for you as an individual.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
I like that.
So what, so if I'm somebody that maybe I haven't been working out very much, or I'm interested in a Spartan type of fitness program, what would be your recommendation for how do I get involved? How do I get started? Where do I begin?
All right. So let's take somebody that's interested in doing their first Spartan event, and they come in and approach me or call me. By the way, my gym's name is Gett Core Fitness, and we focus on obstacle course training and functional fitness and boot camp type classes. And then we do what we call hybrid fitness, which is training for DecaFit and training for High Rocks events, stuff like that. So somebody approaches me that they want to do their first Spartan event and they want to get trained up. So I usually bring them in for their first class, I call in obstacle training. I focus on the first three things that you're ever going to encounter in obstacle course training: is the rope climb, rings, and monkey bars. Those are primarily, you'll find those three items just about in 95 to 99% of all obstacle course events. So those are the first three things that I teach. I also want to see what their grip strength is like, or their hanging strength is like. So usually I'll pop them up on a pull-up bar, and I'll just time them and have them hang. Because ideally what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to hang for about a minute and a half eventually, because that's usually how long it takes for you to get through one of those rigs at any obstacle race, anywhere between a minute and a half, depending on how fast you move through it. So if you can hang off a bar for a minute and a half, you're off to a good start.
Peter Attia will tell you that that's one of the things that he looks at. One of the primary tests that he'll do to test for longevity and your overall fitness is your grip strength. And the stronger your grip strength is, it's one of the best predictors for health and longevity in the long term. So there's a little bit of piece of motivation for anyone that might be listening.
Yeah, I need to start listening to them. Yeah. So usually we'll do that. And then I just teach them the basic techniques of rope climbing. What I focus on, rope climbing, the rings and the monkey bars, what I focus on is muscle efficiency. So what I want people to understand is when they're doing these races, they're running. Okay. And they're going to come to an obstacle. They're not going to come to that obstacle fresh, at 100%. They're going to come to that obstacle tired, especially the rope climb. And usually you never know where the rope climb is in a race. It could be later on in the race, and you want to have enough energy to tackle that rope climb and accomplish the rope climb. So the techniques that I teach is how to save muscle energy by focusing more on traversing that rope with your legs versus pulling yourself up with your arms. So we teach those techniques. We teach efficient ways to do the rings where you're not muscling the rings. You're just kind of relaxed, working on the grip strength. Because as long as you got good grip strength, you can hang on there forever and just gliding through the rings. And the same thing with the monkey bars. I don't want people to be muscling the monkey bars. I want them to glide through the monkey bars. So I try to teach muscle efficiency type exercises or techniques that are going to save them energy for later stuff down the road when it comes to obstacle racing.
So in terms of if I'm new and I'm listening and I've never done this and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't hang from a ring, I can't climb a rope, I can't do monkey bars, so why should I even bother? Um, yeah, I think the perspective about that I've always tried to impart on people is that, well, maybe you can't today, but just it doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 and beyond. I've seen people in their 60s learn how to climb ropes that have
Oh yeah,
never done it before. So it's possible, but you have to start somewhere. And so when you're doing these baseline tests, right, it's a matter of, okay, where are you today? And then I can show you where you need to be in order to be able to complete these obstacles. So let's build a plan from today and work to how we're going to get there.
right. So when it comes to training, matter of fact, it's funny because I had a guy call me yesterday from Thomasville, Georgia, that's going to do his first Spartan race here in Jacksonville, and he's actually driving down, and is going to come meet me today at 4 because he wants to learn those 3 items that he mentioned. And I was like, funny you should say that because those are the first 3 items that I teach. So I'm pretty confident that he should be able to get it. Um, but anyway, as far as when I train a lot of OCR stuff, once I feel that a person is comfortable, I give them tips on what to do to practice their grip strengths or their hanging strengths. Tell them to do a lot of farmers carries, ways to grasp the bars, hook grip versus using your regular standard grip. Um, and once they start getting comfortable with their actually doing the obstacles pretty efficiently, then I start incorporating training routines when they show up where I have them run a lap, carry something heavy, and then do the obstacle. So we start now we start having them do the actual obstacle with a heart rate a little bit higher now, and that's where, the training makes a difference, you know, because one thing is doing it fresh, but another thing is when your heart rate spiked up, 30% higher, then, it's a whole different world. So,
Yeah, and you're tapping into multiple energy systems throughout the course of a race, where the runs. I think are typically in what we would consider like the zone two, particularly in the longer races where you might not be sprinting in that 5K length type of race. Your pace is going to be faster because the race is shorter, so your energy expenditure over time is going to be um, well, you can expend more energy quickly in a race like that and then still complete it. But if you run the first 5K of a beast at the pace that you run a sprint, you might be in trouble. When you get to that 7-8 mile mark and you realize you're only halfway, kind of like what happened to you in Boston. It's easy to get
yeah,
wrapped. It's easy to get wrapped up in the excitement at the beginning, but
yeah.
no, that's
Well, it's funny because when I started in '98, that's when the first time I ever like went somewhere and paid to do a 5K. Um, I I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I knew I was pretty quick. My training was I would try to run like 2 weeks out before the race. Um, my my first mile was always considered my warm up mile, and I would do relatively pretty good. But it wasn't until I started meeting and knowing some of the folks that were actually racing in the local community that we became friends that I realized that my training philosophy when it came to running was totally screwed up. Um, I started listening to some of the stuff they did. Do a warm up mile or warm up half mile. Prior to the race, proper stretching and stuff like that. And once I started changing the way I was training, I actually, it's funny, between the ages of 46 and 48 is when I actually PR'd in all my disciplines, the mile, the 5K, the 10K, the 5 mile, the half marathon, that late in my life. Usually you're PRing, in your, late 20s, 30s and stuff like that. I'm PRing on all my disciplines at 46 to 48, and that was because I wasn't really training correctly for the events that I was doing. So, once you get a little bit of knowledge, and you start implementing that knowledge in your own training routines, you'd be surprised at things that you can accomplish, things you can do. And it has made me, relatively successful when it comes to the hybrid fitness, like Deca Fit and High Rocks and stuff like that. Um, so
Yeah, I think that's another important thing to really bring up, because sometimes, like when we're younger, you have young kids, you're working, life is busy, and it's easy to say, well, you know what, I'll sacrifice a little bit of sleep here, I'll sacrifice my workouts, and we start putting our own needs on the back burner, and then next thing you know, a week becomes 2 weeks, 2 weeks becomes a month becomes 3 months, and now you're out of shape, your energy levels are down, you're not feeling good, it's just not healthy for you. You can't, your body can't manage stress in the same ways, and then we decide, hey, you know what, I'm gonna get in shape. This is the year I'm gonna choose a goal, I'm gonna go run a marathon. And what do? We get excited about the goal, we run out the door and we run 10 miles, and then we can't move for a week.
right.
Our feet are killing, our hips are killing, our knees are aching. And I've had this conversation for years and years, as a CrossFit affiliate owner. All the time I would get people that would say, oh, I'm going to get in shape, and then I'm going to come down to do CrossFit. But I want to lose some weight first, and I want to get in shape first. And it was always a head scratcher to me. And it was always a conversation that I would like to have with people. And I'm like, look, if you're going to do this, what I would recommend is you come and train with us for 3 months, and then spend the next 9 months training on your own, instead of the other way around. Don't train for 9 months on your own and then come. And because here's what we're going to do. We're going to teach you the fundamentals about how to move properly. We're going to build on how to do that consistently. We'll scale intensity as our mechanics and everything build and look good, but we're going to build a strong foundation. We're going to give you all the knowledge and everything that you need to know and learn. We're going to teach you. And so then you can take it and go do it on your own, but don't try to do it the other way around. And it was, I can't say that I didn't make that mistake myself when I was young. And I to this day, I wish that I would have found good coaching when I was young and not when I was old. And one of the things we talk a lot about on the Coptimizer podcast is optimization. Performance Protocol is our sponsor, and it's an executive coaching program that we bring to the policing world. And the concept of this is it's not new, right? We're not inventing anything new with it, but the idea of educating people on having a coach and having a coach early is a force multiplier. And it's going to allow you to, as experience has demonstrated to me time and time again, it's going to allow people to reach higher aspirations, and they're going to reach higher goals. Their ceiling is going to be raised by getting good coaching and getting it early. So whether it's in fitness, whether it's in, if it's in life coaching, it's business, find somebody that's been there, that's done that has the experience, that can give you the formula for success, and then find what works with you in that process. And the sooner you do it, the better.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what happened with me with the running, the road racing, stuff like that. So, and it's funny you mentioned that, I'm going to get in shape before I come see you. Cause I've heard that quite a few times, with people that have wanted to join my gym, and, I need to get in shape before I come to one of your classes. Like, no, this is where you're going to get in shape, because our class philosophy is, you're going to do the same thing that everybody else is doing, but you're going to do it within your means and within your ability. Like, you're not going to have, there is no, the men do this way, the women do this way. It's what can you do and what can you build off of? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
set your platform, set your guideline or whatever you want to call it, and let's start building off of that. You know, you don't have to finish the workout. You just got to at least show up and attempt to finish the workout, you know, and just slowly build off of that. But yeah, I've heard that statement, you know, many times, you know, since I've been a gym owner is, you know, I need to get in shape before I come to one of your classes. You know, our classes, some of our classes are tough. I mean, we've had the, you know, the Deca Strong champ at our gym. We've had the female Deca Strong champ at our gym. You know, we've made a name for ourselves when it comes to the hybrid fitness, both in and primarily in Deca and a little bit in High Rocks. So a lot of people sometimes get, I won't say intimidated, but get reluctant to come try because they think that it's a hard, you know, 100% go. And it's really not. It's, yeah, we do that, but you're going to do it within your capabilities. And, you know, we're not going to make you do something that's going to cause you injury or anything like that. We're not, you know, that's not our goal. Our goal is to build you up and make you stronger, make you faster, and primarily make your endurance that much more. Because what good is it to be fast, or what good is it to be strong, but your endurance sucks and you can't run and then go lift, you know, 50 pounds, you know, 2 seconds later. You know, that endurance is a key factor in it.
Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, he expressed this, I think, probably most brilliantly. I've never heard anyone say it any better, like in terms of trying to get people to relate to this and understand when it comes to fitness, right? And it was basically along the lines of the needs of our Olympic athletes, our special forces operators, and our grandparents are all the same. It's just really a difference in degree and kind, because when you're 80 years old, you still have to get up and down off the toilet, right? You have to be able to squat. You have to sit down and stand up. And you know, it's kind of, people sometimes get a little uncomfortable when you say it that way, but it's true. So like I hear people, oh, I can't squat. I had surgery on my knee when I was in high school. You know, I blew my knee out in football, and so I can't squat. The doctor says I shouldn't squat. And you know, he has this great, this great conversation about this. Okay, well, you know, is your doctor going to be there to help you get up and down off the toilet? No. Okay. Right. Well, then how are you going to do that? So yeah, you need to learn to work, with your limitations or through your limitations and beyond. And so what we talk about is scaling, you know, and what you're talking about is, you can go. And when you run a class, I bet that, you know, when you have the Deca Strong world champion in your gym, you can have a 60-year-old dad or grandfather working out right next to him or her, and they can compete together, but their workout is just going to look a little bit different. You know, one might be running shorter distances or walking or using a lighter weight, scaling the obstacles, doing what they can do that's going to push them. So at the end of a workout, they're both going to be equally tired. Right. And it's going to be, their work is going to be relative to them and their capacity for where they are in that moment. So it's, in short, what I'm saying, it's the ego that gets in our way. It's that fear of how am I going to appear in front of these other people that are so fit. And I'll say this too, like if you go to a gym where people make you feel bad or you feel uncomfortable because you're not as fit as the fit people in there, you're in the wrong gym.
Exactly. 100%. Totally agree with that.
And so that it's one of the things that I've loved about a lot of the functional fitness gyms that I've been in. Some are CrossFit, some are not, but you can tell pretty quickly. And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you just go and work out and get a feel. Don't join for a year, join for a month, and then see what you like about the atmosphere. If there's 3 or 4 gyms that you're interested in, go spend a month in each one, and then find the one where you feel most comfortable, and because that's where you're going to be long term. That's what's going to be, and you know what? All 4 of them could be good gyms. It's just that one is going to be right for you, and if it's right for you, that's where you're gonna feel good going. you're going to be able to build a healthy habit, and you're going to be able to go over the long term. So, don't be shy about going in and being the newbie. There's other benefits to that, right? There's other psychological benefits to being the new person and learning a new skill.
Yeah, and we always make everybody feel welcome, and people usually fit right in, 100% right from the get go. We got this gentleman who moved down from New York. He's in his I want to say he's 65 now, or going to be 65. Yeah, he'll be 65. Just did his first decamile last weekend, and
Awesome.
And he got ready for it like in 3 or 4 months, just coming to the classes, working on his own, asking me for technique advice, stuff like that. And he did really well for his age category. And we have a lot of our members are, 40 plus range and above, whatnot. So it's our gym is designed for anybody that wants to improve their functional fitness, improve their fitness and their health. And we just enjoy, making people feel good and walk tall and whatnot. So
Yeah, and I'll give this caveat too, right? I'm not a doctor. I did not spend the night in a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm not going to act like a doctor.
right.
And I'm not going to give anybody here fitness or medical advice other than you got to do something. But for anyone that is listening, and I in particular the policing. So some of the data on the health and wellness in our policing population, it's downright frightening. 60 to 80% of police officers today are insulin resistant, and they don't know it, meaning that they've got 100 glucose levels of above 100 deciliters per liter. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
So on that, it's in the range of 100 to 120, which means that you're really pre-diabetic, and that's people in their 20s and 30s. We're not talking 40s and 50s.
Right. Obesity
rates around 70 to 80%. Morbid obesity rates between 20 and 30%. And so there's a lot of reasons for that. There is emotional stress, there's physical stress, there's chemical stressors, there is shift work. There's a lot of things that are playing into it. But understanding that is the important part, and knowing that it's not going to get better on its own. These things, they do not resolve themselves on their own. So you really have two choices. You can have a lifestyle intervention, or you can start taking medications. But if you don't do either one of those things, this is why the cardiovascular disease rates in the policing population, it's 48% of the policing population will have a heart attack before, it's 45% before the age of 48. So knowing, it's crazy. I mean, the numbers are just, it's really frightening. So this is why I'm so passionate about it. And I'm trying, anything I can get people to do, remove obstacles, remove barriers, and get them moving towards fitness, I think is important. And the one caveat that I always say, regardless of your age and where you're starting, it is important to understand what your limitations are, and make sure you do get a comprehensive physical, especially if you're 35 or older and you've been carrying, or if you have any type of genetic predisposition to disease. So I think it's good for people to get a comprehensive lipid test done. And there's some things we could talk about there, but I just, get a good physical, but you don't have to wait. But those are something that I would say, I tell people, do it sooner. Just kind of like find a coach sooner, get a good understanding of what your health picture looks like, for a couple reasons. One, that's how you stay safe. So you don't try to do too much too soon before you're ready. But then also, I'm a data geek. I'm a numbers, and so having good data can be a very strong motivator to keep you incentivized to doing what you're doing. And one of the things that I love about DECA is that what you're doing is timed. And it's
Yeah.
time. So if the first time you do a deca strong and it takes you 45 minutes to do all 10 stations, well, guess what? Now you know where you're starting and you've got a baseline.
Yep.
And now
That's
you can start your workout program, and we can retest you in 3 months. And guess what? In 3 months, now you're at 35 minutes. Wow, you just cut 10 minutes off. So what does that, what does that mean to your overall health? You've just increased your work capacity, by 20%. Wow. What am I capable of? Right.
Yep.
So
Well,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let's put that perspective as far as baseline in everyday life for somebody that's really not out there working out and stuff like that. How do they establish their baseline? And I've told a few people, you need to look at your family history. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, my mom's side of the family, genetic wise, I mean, they for the most part live well into their 80s and whatnot. Relatively, I won't say relatively healthy, uh, but nothing out of the extraordinary like cancers or anything like that. You know, I look at my dad's side. My dad passed early 70s. I mean, he had it all: heart condition, overweight, colon cancer, diabetes. So that's where you need to figure out what is my life health baseline. What do I need to do to change that? Here's my dad on one side where he died relatively young, you know, because he had everything that you can possibly name that's going to kill you. And then, relatively healthier side on my mom's side, where do I want to be? I want to be closer to this side. What do I need to do to be closer to this side? I need to change my habits. I need to get more involved in physical activity. I need to get more involved in eating healthier and hopefully change that dynamic of not being one of the statistics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, that's what you're just talking about. We refer to as the diseases of Western culture, Western
Mm-hmm.
civilization, which begins with underlying inflammation that generally is a combination of nutrition, lack of movement, lack of recovery, all of those things, and it accumulates over time.
Yep.
Yeah. So one of the in part with Precision Protocol, one of the things that we've worked into that program for police departments that might be interested in it. One of the things that you get when you start this program is a test through Precision Health Reports. And Dr. Bill Cromwell and Matt Martin, they're the founders of Precision Health Reports. It is it's an 8-year cardiometabolic risk test that you can get through a simple blood test that you can get done at a LabCorp. And you get that done. And for things like you're talking about, not only your resting blood glucose, but APOB, HbA1c, these things that you find that are inflammatory markers that are in the blood. All of these things are there, and they can, and this is based on 200 different clinical studies that are documented that helped build this risk prediction for you. You can chart it out. You can see what the path that you're on. And for me personally, I have what they call lipase small a, LP little a. It's a little extra molecule on your LDL cholesterol. And again, I'm not a doctor, so don't come at me if you're a medical professional here. I just want to make people aware of it, that if you have it, it's an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. And so I've always been one that I've kept all my numbers in the ideal range my entire life. And then in my late 40s, that those LPA numbers started to skyrocket. And as I was tinkering with some of my nutrition protocols, but since I'd been doing these blood tests, I saw that. And so I was able to adjust and course correct and then work with my physician to lower those numbers back down. And
Nice.
So don't be afraid to get those tests done. Even if you think you're super healthy, I try to tell people all the time, looks can be deceiving. Genetics are one thing, lifestyle interventions are another. So it's good to have a solid understanding of both. So
Right.
Just a little sidebar, a little tangent there. It's good to have those things done. So we're coming up on an hour, so I want to be respectful of your time. But now, what there's been a little bit of humbleness going on here, so I'm going to say this as we close out. So not only have you been successful in the DecaFit environment, but at the World Championships in November, you placed in age group. You were number one in DecaFit, Deca Mile, and Deca Strong. So
Yes.
the trifecta. You won
Yeah.
all three categories, and
Yes.
so walk people through. Maybe the easiest way to explain it is probably start with Deca Strong. What is a Deca race? What are the workstations that you're doing, and how are we testing your work capacity in these three different events?
So in the DecaFit, the only thing that changes slightly are two events, which is the med ball sit-ups becomes a med ball toss, and the ball over shoulder becomes a ball over 4-foot wall or structure or whatnot. But aside from that, all the exercises are the same for all three of them. The only thing different in them is the Deca Strong has no running, so it's all 10 zones back to back from zone 1 through zone 10. And that's usually when you get into that dark zone. The Deca Mile is 160 meters of running. You start off with 160-meter run, and you do 10 runs before all 10 zones, which equals a mile. A lot of people like the Deca Mile. I kind of prefer it a little bit because even though I try to run the mile hard, not super hard, but I'm able to recover a little bit before I hit the next zone. And then you got the fit. So the fit's great for those that like running 5Ks and 10Ks. Those that hate running, the fit is going to be a little bit challenging. But like the mile, you can utilize that run to kind of reset and kind of figure out exactly what you need to do for the next zone. The only time that changes is, like, for example, in the championship, there was no reset. You're running against 10, 12 other guys that have that same mentality. I want to be first. And you know how that works.
Yeah, that's suffering. That's what that means.
Yes. So it turns into a sufferfest when you go to a championship event, and being able to be ready for that environment. Like, for example, the fit had one guy. I can tell he was a great runner. I mean, I always tell the great runners by the shoes that they show up with. So I look at their shoes. Okay, I'm gonna have a little bit of trouble here. So and he kept on my heels for the fit pretty much the whole time. So how I did well in all three events, not only did I want to do well, but I wanted, being that it was the first championship event, I wanted to be that first guy to win all three, to win the trifecta. Okay. That may sound cocky or whatever the case may be. I think in my mind, it's setting high goals for myself and trying to achieve those goals. And that kind of dovetails into my model for the gym, which I'll cover later. So the key thing is being prepared to be able to run and recover efficiently for all three types of events. The other thing is being able to hit every zone with no lag time. So what I see a lot of people do is say, for example, in the mile, they're coming up to whatever zone they're coming into, and right before they get into that zone space or area, they start kind of like, okay, now they stopped running, now they're walking fast, or they're walking to get into the piece of equipment or start whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, how many seconds did you just lose there? So being efficient in hitting those zones, getting out of those zones just as fast as you got into them is key. I don't know why I'm sharing this with you guys.
Yeah. No. Well, so really, before you get too far into the sauce,
yeah.
So if someone's never run one of these, like if you're coming from the CrossFit side, what I would say is a Deca Strong is what in the CrossFit world we would call that a chipper, like where
Yes.
you're going to do 10 different movement stations, and you do them back to back. And so the movements for these races, they're all the same, whether it's a strong, whether it's a mile, or whether it's a fit. So station 1 is backward lunges with, I believe it's a 55-pound weight. You put that on your shoulders. You do 30 of those. Station 2 is a 500-meter row on a Concept 2 rower. Station 3 is
20 box jump overs.
20 box jump over, and that's on a 20-inch box, correct?
24.
24-inch box. Okay. And then station 4 is the wall ball sit-ups, and that's a 20-pound for men. It's a 20-pound wall ball. I think for women it's 14, similar to the way they do that in CrossFit. But your feet are tucked, and you have to touch the ball behind your head, and then you toss the ball to a target that's, I think, 4 feet, and it comes back, and then you cycle through that. So you do 25 of those. And then station 5 is a ski
500-meter ski erg.
So 500-meter on a ski erg, which is again, where it's an implement that you're pulling down on handles that have resistance. It simulates something similar to cross country skiing. It's not directly the same, but very similar. Station 6 is the farmer's carry. And what are the weights for men and women in that?
So it's 40 for the women and 60 for the men. And it's 100-meter farmer's carry. 100
meters, and those are generally dumbbells. I think if you can use anything if you're training at home, kettlebells, whatever you have. But and then station 7 is everybody's favorite, and that's the assault bike, or the
that's the make it or break it zone right there.
25 calories on the bike. Station 8 is that's the wall, the ball, the D ball, or what do they call those?
Slam ball.
The slam ball. So those.
Dead ball.
What's the weight for men and women in that one?
60 pounds also, and 40 for the women.
So 60 pounds where you lift it up, and either over your shoulder, or depending on which one, or over a 4-foot bar, where you have a 4-foot wall, you lift it up and over. And then station 9 is a sled push and a sled pull.
The tank.
And it's the tank, so it's not the metal sled, but it's the sled that's on wheels that has that geared resistance built into it. And that's 10 meters down, I think, and 10 meters back. You do that 5 times. And then everybody's favorite on the last station, 20 burpees with a 45-pound weight. And what do they call those weights in
the Rams?
They're called Rams. And because for police officers, they should be very, very familiar. It looks just like a ram that you're going to use to breach a door, except there's no handles on it. There's at the ends, there's empty spots in the end, so you can actually grab a hold of it on the end.
Right.
So then for the Deca Strong, you're just moving station to station. For the Deca Mile, you start with a 160-meter run, do your first obstacle, and then 160-meter run, second, repeat all the way through, you're done. And then the Deca Fit, 500-meter run to start, and then 500-meter run in between each exercise.
Correct.
So
which you should be doing next weekend, right?
I'll be doing that next weekend, heading down to Knoxville. So it's I was supposed to be with you. I was registered. I qualified. I was supposed to be out there with you in November, but I tweaked my back, so I sissied out and decided that I would rest a little bit and start anew this year.
Good. Well, we'll see you this year.
So do you remember what your times were off the top of your head, just so people can kind of, gauge what does world-class time look like?
My strong was, I want to say 14:36, somewhere around there. I actually PR'd on my strong that day. My mile was just over 21. It was like a low 22. And my fit was, I want to say, a low 37. So,
and then in the Knoxville race I saw this year, which I didn't see last year, you now have the opportunity to do what Go Ruck version of this, where you can do the
Yeah.
deck of fit wearing wearing either the 20 or the 30-pound ruck.
Yep. And I think they got a team division too, also. So
Okay. Well, that one definitely interests me. I enjoy those. I only do one ruck race a year, and that's here at a friend of mine actually sponsors a race, um, and then we do it to raise money for our Indiana Veterans Home. So it's kind of
nice.
so rucking is again in terms of like Peter Attia will tell you, that's another rucking is a really good way to get to increase your work capacity, and it's a good way to get healthy for longevity. So anyone that might be interested in that, I would say Go Ruck is probably the most popular and the most prolific brand that's out there, and for good reason. They do a lot of stuff that's great for veterans.
They do.
But
They do. They Jason, the owner, I mean, their headquarters are here in Jacksonville. Um, but they do events all over the country and overseas and whatnot. Matter of fact, I'm scheduled to do an event in March up in Savannah, one of their 5-hour events. So gonna see how I do with my ankle up there, but it's definitely getting a lot better. So I should be pretty good for that. So, but yeah, they're a great group of former special op guys that just love rucking. They put on events all the time. So
yeah, and so it's kind of cool. Like, so people that, like, if you're busy, right? Let's just say, like, I don't have time to get my workout in, but I know I need to walk my dog. So how about you throw your ruck on and take your
Mhm.
dog for a walk? That's a good workout. If you go
Yeah,
for a 20-minute walk with your ruck on and walk your dog, the neighbors may look at you a little bit funny, but that's okay. You're getting fitter, and maybe you'll inspire them to throw a ruck on and get out there and do a little walk themselves. That's
absolutely.
all right. So what was your mile time? I don't think you
Um,
said.
yeah, I did. It was
Uh,
just over 21. I think it was I want to say between 21 and 22. My fastest is a 21, like mid 21 or high 21, like PR on that. But I think it was a 22, a low 22, like 22:15 is what I ran the mile in.
all right.
So
That's
and that
impressive.
was so uh, of all the three events, I knew that the fit, as long as I maintain a good pace, I was going to be, I would do pretty good. I'm pretty strong in the zones, other than the assault bike and the rower, which I need to work on. I can always make up time on the run portion. Um, the strong is you just got to go black, dark, from beginning to end, and just hit every zone as hard as you can. Um, but the mile is what's interesting about the mile is, mentally I knew that I needed to get out there first, and I needed to get into the zone first, and I needed to leave the lunges first. And because believe it or not, that if you can do that, one, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes mentally you kind of break people down a little bit in that are competing with you. Then you got the guys that are going to try to stay with you. And doing that, I almost screwed up because and there's a video of it where I came into the zone first and did my lunges and and dropped the ram and started to run off. And the guy's like, "You got 10 more." I had only so went back and threw it back on my shoulders and knocked out the other 10 and still managed to get out there about like a half a second or a second before anybody else did. So, and the whole time I'm running that second 160, like kicking myself in the butt. How the F did I screw that up? Like I do this all the
uh,
time. But yeah, I did 20 lunges and dropped the ram and started running before the guy was realizing, like, you got 10 more. So, and it's on video too. It's funny.
yeah, we call
But yeah,
in CrossFit, we call that WOD drunk. You get WOD drunk, you get excited, and you get the adrenaline going, and then you get the oxygen depravity.
yep,
And that's why when you see CrossFit competitions, you see there's judges, and just like DECA has it, there are judges that are there that are counting your reps for you. because it's easy to get lost. I mean, sometimes you might do 40 when you only need to do 30.
I always say that adrenaline can be your friend, but it also can be your biggest enemy, you know, because a lot of times adrenaline spikes up your heart rate too much. And sometimes you end up hitting a zone harder than you want to because you're so excited and whatnot that it defeats you a little bit. But for the most part, you know, you just got to harness that and just hit every zone methodically, know exactly what you need to do, know the proper procedure, and don't lose count. uh,
I love that advice. Don't lose count.
yeah.
That's great. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up because we've been going for a while, and I appreciate your time. So if somebody is interested in becoming interested in running these races, the Deca races, the High Rocks, or the adventure type of races, and they're in the Jacksonville, Florida area, or they want to travel to that area, how would they? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
So our gym name is Gett Fitness. We're on. You can find us on Google. You can find. We have a website, Gett Fitness, and Facebook is primarily where we generate a lot of information or post pictures, stuff like that. Go to our Gett Fitness Facebook page, and you'll see a bunch of our members competing or you know, Facebook Live or stuff like that. And my number's on the website. My number should be on the Facebook page. That they can get a hold of me if they want to start, you know, either the hybrid fitness or the off course racing side of the house, or even if they just want to join a gym that's going to really focus on getting their, not only making them strong, but getting their endurance levels up, you know, much higher, whatnot. You know, that's what we focus on. I always say that, you know, you got runners and then you got, you know, weightlifters or you know, kind of like the CrossFitters. Like we're right in the middle, you know, between both spectrum. And that's the beauty of what we do is we can transition back and forth at any given time, and do relatively well because we focus on doing both. So.
Well, and I think that's always it's good. It's a good way to prepare for life in general. And you know, with all these, one of my favorite T-shirts of all time has been it's got a picture of an alien on the front, and it says when they come, they'll eat the weak first.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's motivation with all this talk of all these strange balloons and UFOs flying around. It might be time, you know, if you didn't have another motivating factor to get to the gym, start working out. Maybe that's your motivation factor.
That statement holds true, except at our gym, it's not going to be old people they're going to be eating because our old people at our gym are pretty strong. So, yeah.
All right.
And you got to set the example, you know, that I live by. You know, if I'm going to teach something or if I'm going to do something or have somebody do something, I need to be out there with them doing it. I need to kind of set the example of what we're capable of doing at our age, you know. And a lot of times I'll work out with the class. Like, for example, our Monday 5:30 class, I designed it for a even number, you know, because it was kind of a partner thing or a team thing. And of course we had odd numbers. So I jumped in and did the workout with them. And then 6:30 hybrid class, again, ended up with odd numbers and ended up jumping in and being that even number. So you got to be ready to jump in and you know, pull your load or you know, do whatever you need to do to accomplish, you know, what you're trying to accomplish with your members, whatnot.
Well, that's just like life, right? You never know what's coming. So
Right.
Prepare yourself and be as ready as you can be. And I think that's great advice. Regardless of what age you are, there's never a reason why you can't at least try your best to lead by example.
Yep.
We're a metabolically unfit nation, and we need we need to move in a more positive direction. So I appreciate you spending your valuable time with us. I appreciate you setting the example. I really appreciate you setting the bar high. So in my training runs, I'm suffering because of you, and I think I got a little bit to go, but I'm going to do my best. So I'm looking forward to the day I get a chance to come compete with you in person and not just virtually.
I look forward to it also, Patrick. And much respect to you guys and the men and women in blue. So kudos to what you guys do. So put you guys on your lives on the line every day when you guys put on that uniform. So mad respect for you guys.
Well, and thanks to you. So with that, I'll say keep after it until the next time we're 1042.
All right. See you, Patrick.